Well, it's time to take a look at how the markets have been performing this week, and we're joined by Harrison Gitau, Senior Research Analyst at Apex Africa Capital. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you for hosting me.
And Harrison, let's start off with the top gainers this week. I'm seeing some interesting moves, especially with the Uchumi supermarkets. It's actually up by 39%. This is in comparison to last week on Thursday. We've seen a lot of positive sentiment around Uchumi supermarket, and they're trying to sort of redouble their efforts towards making the supermarket more profitable. Yeah. Perhaps what are they not doing right, or what are they doing right?
For Uchumi, there has been continued positive market uptake given the recovery plan that they are currently executing.
Yeah.
So there has been continued interest from buyers in the market. On the other hand, the price has actually gone up, which has seen some people willing to exit the counter actually exiting at higher prices. Mm-hmm. That's where the actually demand and supply meet at higher prices. Yeah.
Well, this week we did see a big conference around the retail sector, and they're talking about digital. The future of retail is digital, and from the way we are seeing the various multinationals also making the entry into Kenya, this is having a big impact really on the local retail stores. Do you feel Uchumi can bounce back like what you're seeing is happening in the aviation sector with Kenya Airways? For
Uchumi, the future of retail is ideally digital. But there needs to be around a lot of investment in the digital platforms in retail. Mm-hmm. The players have to get their logistics right, they have to get their pricing right, they have to get the availability of the products right. So it's a lot of mix and matches that have to actually align.
All right.
So that the primary mover or the first guy who gets it right gets the cash in the market.
All right. Yeah. And let's talk about CIC Insurance. It's also one of the top gainers this week. Yeah. It's actually up by 8.89%. And the insurance sector, of course, has been facing challenges when it comes to penetration. But you're seeing they're trying to become more innovative. Yeah. And what do we see in the horizon, especially for insurance firms in the East African space?
Thank you. Regardless of the penetration being actually very small, insurance industry last year, while all other industries were hurting, it's among the very few industries that recorded gains in profits. So going forward, this year is expected to be much better for companies than last year, given a cool down of politics and better environment. So insurance industry still is key for investors to reap benefits from. And that's why we are seeing a lot of interest around the insurance sector. For insurance sector, the main challenge they have right now is actually combating the rising claims and also combating matters to do with fraud.
Yeah, fraudulent claims.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So for CIC, what's up with their stock?
Their stock is actually benefiting from a positive market news. There is some news out there that they have done very good quarterly numbers. And that is what is actually pushing up the price.
All right, some positive sentiment around that particular stock. Yeah. Well, let's take a look at the top losers, Harrison. And TransCentury is among the top losers. It's down by 10.98%. Yeah. I'm also seeing an interesting stock here, and that is East African Cables. But let's start with TransCentury. It has been having a very interesting moves, especially in East Africa. And of course, we did see some managerial shakeups last year. Yeah. And where do we see the company going now that it's actually among the top losers? Are there signs that things might be brighter in this quarter?
Their business model is coming under a lot of pressure, given their heavy investment in infrastructure and in engineering. Those two segments have seen a lot of interest from other developers, other firms. So the company is actually starting to face mounting competition in those two spaces. And that was evident in their contraction in their revenue last year, 2017.
All right.
Yeah.
And how about East Africa, actually East Africa Cables?
Cables is it's actually a subsidiary of TransCentury. And Cables, the main challenge has been substandard or fake goods that are competing with its goods, and also imported goods. So when East African Cables is hurting, the parent company is also hurting.
Correct.
Yeah.
And finally, Harrison, the NSE 20 share index, something we always talk about here on the program, it's actually down by 0.27%.
Yeah.
And majority of the stockbrokers felt that the market would be bouncing back post the election period, but you're still seeing a sluggish kind of approach, especially how the NSE 20 has been sort of volatile in the last few months.
The NSE 20 is down mainly because of Safaricom and KCB. Those are it's a price-weighted index. So when the big prices counters actually move down, it actually carries down the entire market. But looking at the all-share index, it's actually up week on week, coming from positive gains from breweries and Centum.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that interesting insight into the markets. Well, it's time now to take a look at Markets 101. Well, it's now time for my favorite segment, and that is Question on the Street. Let's take a listen in on this week's question.
My name is Faith. My question is, what's the meaning of NSE, all-share index, and all-share index?
Thank you very much for the question. The NSE all-share index, or as we call it, the NASI, is an index that measures the performance of the market. It incorporates all the companies, and it is a market cap weighted index. So the companies that have bigger market caps have more influence over the all-share index. So companies like Safaricom, Equity, breweries have more weighting on the index than the other counters. So whenever we are talking about the entire market performance, we're actually looking at the all-share index.
All right, we do hope that you've been satisfactorily answered, and we definitely do welcome more questions here on the program. Well, let's now actually move on and take a look at the historical fact for this week. Well, that's where we bring it to a close on this week's episode of The Trading Bell. Many thanks for your valued company. Remember, you can always interact with us on our social media handles appearing at the bottom of your screen. And remember, we shall always make it an effort to make sense of what's happening in the business world. Well, many thanks, Harrison.
Thank you very much.
Have a lovely week.